Moncton, in walked Bud.
If you enjoy the outdoors, walking, bike riding, or jogging, the Franklin Bellingham Rail Trail is for you. You'll find paved parking at the Grove Street entrance in Franklin and at Lake Street, Center Street, and Fox Run Road in Bellingham. Come explore and enjoy all 4 seasons along the rail trail. You can also help to support and develop our trail. Join us, the Franklin Bellingham Rail Trail. It's the natural thing to do. For information, visit franklinbellinghamrailtrail.org. A broadcasting outreach of franklin.tv. This is WFPRLP, Franklin on 102.9 FM. And worldwide, anywhere, anytime at WFPR.FM. So glad you could join us.
And on. Okay. There are apologies for the 2 of them.
We will for handbooks, but so someone should log into
Or I can bring mine.
the slideshow.
All right, are we ready? Do you want me to share it with you?
Yes. It's open. Google's open.
This little blog.
This is Zoom, right?
No, that second one
All the notes were still
is ready to be logged in.
I'd rather think. No,
We're good. We're good.
One of them. He has Kylie
right.
and Jason.
Time being 7 o'clock, I call to order the August 23rd Franklin School Committee meeting. Meetings are recorded by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 11 and Verizon Channel 29, as well as recorded by Franklin Matters. Any individual who also wishes to record this meeting must notify the chair in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20F. So we'll begin the agenda with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone could stand. Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As is customary, we will pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, routine business, review of agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look? Looks okay?
Yep.
Okay. Payment of bills taken care of. Payroll, Ms. Stokes?
I reviewed payroll, it's in order.
Okay. Student reps, still none. I can't wait for next month.
Next meeting, we can expect to have some here.
And superintendent's report, Mr. Jagir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I hope that our students, staff, and families are enjoying the last days of summer before we begin next week. We're really excited to have kids back in our buildings, and it's been a very active summer, as I've said before, and I'll hit on that a little bit later, but certainly wanted to just share that. Our new teacher orientation kicked off with nearly 55 newly hired educators today for day 1, and it will take place from the 23rd to the 25th of this week. And some of the agenda topics that were covered, we did some opening remarks, talked about the portrait of a graduate in Franklin, discussed diversity, equity, and inclusion with a focus on belongingness, and student services did an orientation, as well as our technology conversations with the FEA will take place tomorrow. And then tomorrow we'll also have an orientation to our mentoring program. And then on the 3rd day, our newly hired staff will join their administrators in their buildings for a school-based orientation. Today, a highlight was the lunch we had when our administrators joined us for lunch, and it was just a really positive vibe in the cafeteria when our admin joined and sat with our newly hired teachers and really welcomed them into the Franklin community. And I think that I would just emphasize that an orientation, when people can leave and feel like they have a strong understanding of what we're about, not just with our values, but also have the information they need to kind of adjust and transition, I think that's a win. So that's our goal by the end of the 3 days, so we're really excited about that. As far as transportation, just wanted to share, we have adequate transportation and busing at our 26 bus routes, including the ones that drive to the charter. And we will be reinstating 4 late buses that will run this year at the middle and high school. This is a positive change from last year. We weren't able to run the middle school bus routes. We only had 2 at the high school. And we did eliminate 2 elementary routes due to low ridership, and some of our high school and middle school buses are currently filled. There is a waiting list on some of those buses from people who either held a spot, but that is being worked out through a transportation department. We will assign them soon as we are able, and obviously safety remains as our first priority with that. And there are 2,320 students registered in the district at this time, and more people are registering daily to ride our buses. So that's an update on there. I said this last meeting, but I just want to re-emphasize for folks that may be in the crowd or at home, but the meal charges, there's no charge to students. With the signing of the FY23 state budget, Massachusetts became the 5th state to support and extend the universal free meals beyond Congress's expiration date, which was on June 30th of last school year. So those new state funds will be used to supplement the federal USDA program, and as a result, an email went out today to families regarding this. It did provide some instructions. We are encouraging families that believe they may be eligible to complete the application and see what happens if they're not sure. We always say it's best to just fill that application out and get that in and see what can happen. It also, by filling that out, if you are eligible, it could also mean that you're eligible for other benefits as well related to transportation. So I just would encourage families to read through that letter and please submit that application. I have a COVID update. The DESE and the Massachusetts Department of Health issued a joint memo with COVID information for the upcoming school year aligned with the new CDC guidance released last week. This upcoming school year, districts and schools are asked to focus their energy and efforts in a COVID mitigation strategy on vulnerable and symptomatic individuals while minimizing the need for more restrictive district-wide COVID policies. So the Commonwealth is not recommending universal mask requirements, surveillance testing for asymptomatic individuals, contact tracing, or test and stay testing in schools. Districts and schools are reminded that there is no longer a statewide masking mandate in schools other than in health offices. And no contact tracing requirements and no testing requirements are required within our schools. And as always, individuals who wish to continue to wear masks, including those who face higher risk of COVID-19, would be supported in that choice if they chose to wear a mask. We did order more child masks. Mrs. Morano in the Student Services Department was able to order those, and we'll distribute them to our early childhood, ECDC, and our elementary schools next week. And we also have adult masks to distribute for those who wish to wear them within our school buildings. So I have a back to school update just to remind everybody. We've talked about these days before. Monday, August 29th will be the first day for our faculty and staff when we will welcome them back. Tuesday the 30th is the first day for grades 1 through 12. And Wednesday, August 31st, our kindergarten students will start. And on Tuesday, September 6th, our early childhood center will open for students. And just another note, on Friday, September 2nd, we do have a full day professional development day. And you can expect a summary of that, how that goes at the next meeting. And finally, I'm gonna put my plug out for some hiring. We continue to fill postings across the district, and you will hear from our Human Resources Director later this evening with a hiring update. But I wanted to just promote and plug that we have some positions that are open, and the work hours and qualifications do vary by role. We encourage people to go to the Franklin website, and if you go to the Departments tab and go to the HR tab, you can find information on those jobs, and it will bring you right to those postings directly. And if you know anyone interested in a particular position, please have them reach out to the point of contact listed. And a final thing I'd like to say is just to thank everyone. I want to thank our administration, our secretaries, custodians, facilities department, the technology department, the DPW, for the work. They've been really busy, everyone, really busy this summer, readying school, preparing it, whether it's the facility or it's the plans. Either way, there's a lot of work that's been happening behind the scenes that's not always visible to the public, but we really take this work seriously, and I'm just proud to work with the folks that are in this room and the rest of the staff we have in the district to try to create the best possible experience for kids. And I think we've really worked hard, and I just want to express my gratitude for their efforts, and I'm excited to hear more and share more about what we have been up to tonight. And that concludes my long superintendent's report, but I hope that it answered some of the questions that may be out there for people.
Thank you very much. We'll go through the committee. Camille?
I don't have any questions.
David?
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the new teachers, the admin that we have, and welcome back to all the returning teachers as well as we come in next year. I got one question actually about the Bright program. I'll throw out that I know that I think at the beginning of the summer we were having like the space needs assessment. We kind of talked about the Bright program, where that would be, and kind of almost like the path that students would take, kind of from their home school to like the hospital to like the Bright program. Has there been like kind of what's the status of that right now?
So we have a social worker that we hired for the high school Bright program. So that's been established. We have a space in the high school, and we're currently still looking for an ESP, a paraprofessional to support that program as well. The middle school program is on hold until we really figure out how, we consult with Bright further on how to best efficiently meet the needs of 3 middle schools with 1 program. So we're still working on that, but we're in the process of hiring a social worker. We just hired a new social worker also who will cover the middle schools as well. So they did not attach the Bright program, but another added support to the students there.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, I know especially we kind of talked about at the middle school, just trying to figure out that organizational path.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for the update. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Al?
No questions now. Thank you.
Elise?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. All right. I think that's it for the superintendent's report. Moving forward, guests and presentations, none. Discussion action items. First on the list are school handbooks.
So I'm going to kick this over to Mrs. Morano for the school handbook. I just will say, once again, a lot of work as was done behind the scenes this summer in this particular area. So I want to thank our principals and assistant principals and Mrs. Morano for the work that happened. I'll let Paula set up.
Thank you. If I could have my administrative friends to come up too. Great. Mr. Preston. Yep. Mr. Hannah. Yep. We can all. Do you want to bring Charlie's slides? Sure. Yeah. Let's do that.
I've done them all, they just have
There you go. It's coming, Paul. It's coming.
Okay. I'm impatient.
We've got time, we had no guest presentation.
I know.
I'm not
We're
sure
ahead of
the projected
schedule.
wait time. We are ahead of schedule.
What are you trying?
It's like plenty of time.
Sure, Mr. Hannah.
Are you just trying to make it as long as normal?
What? Oh, there it is. Nope. Oh, Lucas, I think, nope, it's recording, it's projecting our Zoom. Oh.
Okay, so the input, I think if we hit the HDMI, well, it should.
I think you have to hit computer.
There we go.
Never a doubt.
All right. Well, thank you all for having us tonight. I want to reiterate what Lucas said. I really appreciate all of our administrators who worked tirelessly this summer on really looking at their handbooks, really fine-tuning and making revisions of what they thought needed to be revised in regards to their 3 different sections. And we also, as Lucas said, did some summer work, working on discipline and kind of revising our discipline matrix and adding that information into both our elementary and middle school handbooks, and Josh looked at revising the high school matrix that was already existing. So we're excited to share that with you today. So we're going to talk about 3 different sections of the handbook. So section 1 of the handbook is the school-specific section, and as you saw in your packet, there really weren't any substantive changes to any of the school sections of the handbooks. So we not going to talk about those tonight because there were no changes. There were a slight change in the Annie Sullivan where they added some language around using the lockers rather than carrying around the backpacks, and then they're going to have locker breaks in between, so just to make it less cumbersome, I think, in the classrooms and whatnot. And then Remington had a slight change with just adding information about their positive behavior recognition with the REMI cards. So that was a nice little addition to the handbook. So now we're going to talk about the Section 2 policies, and that's really looking at by level. And I have a representative from each of the levels here tonight to kind of add some details to and some context to what those changes were. So I'll start with Ms. Kelty from ECDC.
So I, as you saw when you looked through, our handbook, Section 1 is unique, but Section 2, although we align with elementary, I go through it to really make sure it's developmentally appropriate, right? Our families have very young children. They're coming in, and some of the things in there are important once the kids are in elementary school to see, but some don't apply at all. We have appropriate dress. I really liked the way it was worded, the whole idea that it's, responsibility outside of ours. So I put that in because I think that's really important. Other important things like the bullying update, that's in there, but what's not in ours is the discipline matrix. When you think about challenging behaviors with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, it's not that discipline is needed, it's identifying the lagging skills and finding the correct interventions. So talking with Paula, we agreed that we just wouldn't include it. It wasn't developmentally appropriate. So there are a few other things like that, but other than that, we really do align with elementary.
Thank you. Eric's going to speak to our elementary level changes.
Thank you. My colleagues and I reviewed Section 2 of the elementary handbook and proposed changes in the following areas. First, for appropriate dress, we reflected on how the previous language did not fully capture our values of diversity, inclusivity, and respect. The new language creates stronger alignment between school committee policy and the secondary level. And as Kelty said, it also promotes responsibility among students and parents and guardians. Second, as it relates to cell phones in particular, the previous language focused largely on how cell phones would be confiscated if they were used during the day and only returned to parents and guardians. The new language, again, is aligned with the secondary level and also acknowledges the presence of cell phones in our schools and emphasizes responsibility and appropriate use. A significant change in the language at the elementary level is the addition of the school administrators checking the contents of a cell phone if there's reasonable suspicion that a school rule has been violated. Next, as it relates to code of character, conduct, and support, Mike, if you'll just go one more forward, thanks. Administrators, as Ms. Morano said, at all levels have been working collaboratively in this area. The work includes developing a matrix, as you can see, and emphasizing restorative practices. At the elementary level, our focus has been on consistent responses to behaviors across 5 elementary schools and emphasizing restorative practice as a part of such that kids learn from their mistakes. So here's an example of what that might look like for us. If a student demonstrates disruptive behavior, the teacher might review expected behaviors and support reflection. If the behavior continues as we move across into Tier 2, an administrator may become involved, and again, expected behaviors would be reviewed. Here, students would reflect and restorative practices would be implemented. Finally, a Tier 3 response might include loss of privilege in addition to what comes before. We think it's important to note parent and guardians' involvement as a part of each of these tiers. And then would just add that, as you can see in the handbook, some behaviors would result in an immediate Tier 2 or Tier 3 response. So this work is ongoing, and we might bring it back to you in the future if needed.
Great, thank you. All right, Mike Parkasini will talk about this.
Thank you. At the middle level, we made a significant amount of changes, and I'm just going to try to give you a highlight for each of those changes that you can see there on the list. Advisory is really a cornerstone of middle school. It starts the day, kicks off the day. And last year, it was really a Tier 1 effort that was really an admin lift. And now we are really bringing the teachers back into it. So there's been some collaborative efforts there with the teachers this summer, and that'll continue into this year. So this paragraph that's in there really just kind of articulates the fact that we are in a process of rebuilding our advisory from long ago, and this year especially it's more collaborative. And it also aligns with the district vision. Attendance is something that we're always, working towards improving our system, improving our processes. And I give a shout out to Craig and Danielle over at Remington for putting this part together. We are aligning our responses in the attendance realm to a multi-tiered system of support. So like you see with the tiers in the elementary handbook, we also have 3 tiers in the middle school handbook. So we are bringing that attendance world into those tiers. So this chart there just shows some of our possible responses, and it also levels out based on the absences per trimester. And it also aligns with some state laws and policies around attendance. And then our code of character, conduct, and support, we've been building this for a few years now. We have not decided to go with a full-blown matrix yet, but we have built out this chart here, our 3 tiers. And we also changed what we had in our handbook, which was basically a big list of prohibited behaviors, and we just categorized it, which does align with the tiers that you're seeing here. Pulled out tier 2 just because it shows that we added some clarity around suspensions. So if a student demonstrates a tier 2 behavior, there's a possibility there could be an in-school suspension for a half day to a day, or an out-of-school suspension for a day, and that increases as you would go to tier 3 behaviors. Suspensions don't typically occur at tier 1. These have been the goals on the left that we've been working towards for some time, and we do intend to move towards a discipline matrix for next year. Especially we'll get to that work in the summer, and we're going to kind of use that in the background to kind of assess one of the example discipline matrices that we really like, assess how that works for us. So there's a lot of detail there, but that's just what tier 2 looks like. And then these are just some other updates that are more straightforward. We utilize the high school search policy because that does come into play at middle school. So we put that in our middle school handbook. We put the suspension procedures that we use in the handbook. It wasn't in there before, so it's public facing now so everyone can see it. There's clarity. The bullying prevention plan is in there, and we have some information about the mood check screener that's administered at the middle school level. And that's all for middle school.
Thanks, Mike. And Mr. Hannah?
Good evening, thank you, and special shout out to our assistant principals, Ryan Augusta, Jen Sanasuso, Maria Weber, and Kathy Klein for the work they did on updating our handbook over the summer. That's really their realm, as most people will sign off on this document in the next week or so and then not really be aware of it until they're in a meeting in regards to some form of a violation. And I say that half jokingly, but we've spent the last 2 years condensing the document from about 170 pages down inside of 100, and with an attempt to make it a bit more user-friendly. And in today's focus, adjustments that were made in the second part. The first is really around attendance and kind of moving away from some of the COVID protocols, which we were being a bit more lenient when in terms of issuing credit for excessive absences that weren't really aligned with our traditional kind of numbers. Where it differs a bit from the middle and elementaries, we are connecting credit to attendance. So for you to earn enough credit to graduate, you have to physically be there. And so we kind of highlighted that along with some of our dismissal processes and make those a bit more traditional in that we're not going to be taking just an email, so to speak. We're going to kind of come back to we got to have a heads up with a note and a phone call, and if it's kind of caught off guard, then the parent should show up to the school. Obviously we understand emergencies will occur, but we don't want it to be too free-flowing as a means for safety and just kind of responsibility. In addition to that, we're working with some technological systems to help expedite tardiness in attendance, and using school pass and e-hall pass and student IDs that are going to be expected to be on them at all times now, not only buying lunch and accessing the building, but also being able to check in with your ID to if you're late or if you need to be dismissed. So attendance-wise, definitely kind of getting back to where we were a few years ago. Highlighted in the academic dishonesty policy, if and when we have a student that does something not in line with the expectations of whether it be plagiarism or some form of that, really making sure that the teacher and the family connect so that it isn't being described through third or fourth person. Oftentimes these moments will occur, and then if they get too far down the line, there's a lot of confusion. So we're really trying to focus back into teacher-student and teacher-family communication in that particular area. In terms of the code of conduct, we looked at our cell phone policy. We're reiterating in class meetings at the beginning of the year that cell phones are not expected or earbuds to be a part of a classroom experience unless the teacher explicitly allows it. You see some schools around the state are, investing in some of these like magnetic lock boxes that will, get charged every morning and then released at the end of the day. I really feel confident that our young people are able to manage these things with enough kind of guidance. And if you look at the support here, challenge and support, I think that graphic really kind of highlights what a handbook is supposed to do. It's supposed to have expectations that are high, and we're supporting you along the way by calling them out. And I think our cell phone policy does just that. We did have to kind of put a specific line in around elevator use, where we do have 2 functional elevators at the high school. They really are only supposed to be used by students who have permission through the nurse's office, and we have had instances where people have tried to use them in manners that aren't really designed, and if the elevator needs to be serviced, there will be an expectation of a cost participation by the violator. So we wanted to really put that in there black and white so people weren't caught off guard if they received a bill. Similarly, toy guns, things of that nature that may find themselves on campus towards the end of senior year. There are games that are not promoted by the school, but are organized by young people. The particular game is Senior Assassin, where they assign each other folks and so on, and who's going to splash you with a water pistol. And it all seems very innocent and silly if it's done at a summer camp, but when it's done around the community and on campus, we really have no place for that. And we wanted to explicitly share that out. And again, talking in terms of the work we're doing in the diversity, equity, inclusion, any bias-based behavior, that's going to right away go up to a tier 2, tier 3 infraction where we're not tolerating that. We're taking it very seriously, and we're going to follow through with our investigation, et cetera. So a couple last things. We experimented with e-hall pass with great success from both student and teacher feedback. So we re-upped our contract with them. We think that's going to create a much less interactive hallway during class time, which I think all teachers and families and students will benefit from. Social events, rules and regulations, along with commencement activities, just reiterating to students that these are privileges, not rights. Last year, you graciously allowed us to move forward with senior privileges as part of the experience for students in good standing. And if they're not in good standing, not only will they not be allowed to, come on and off campus, but also these types of moments may be restricted. And finally, in terms of the bullying prevention plan, really talking about educating early on with our class meetings and our advisory, and making sure we're supporting our students so that when they are frustrated, they have access to counselors, adjustment counselors, other administrative staff and teachers to kind of vent their frustration. Really, hurt people. That's what we've learned in this field. And if we're able to make sure less people are hurt, then we're probably going to see a lot less bullying. And then finally, we're accountable. We're reporting our findings. We're going to hold folks accountable because that's going to create a safe place. So that's really the work that our assistant principals did this summer on our handbook. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. And then we move to section 3, and these are really the policies that you've all reviewed and approved of over this last year, which includes the wellness policy, the student transportation policy, and the bullying prevention and intervention policy, which all of our administrators noted tonight. So we will take questions now. I do want to acknowledge we have Shannon Barker and Zarabi Connolly in the audience behind us, as well as Craig Williams, Brad Hendrickson, Brendan Healy, Lizzie Morrison, Stephanie Wasick, Becky Motti, and Danielle Champagne online to answer any questions you might have specific to their building policies or Section 2 policies. So, thank you.
Okay, awesome, great. All right, we'll go down the line. Camille? I had a question that was answered, so I'm good. Oh, all right, yeah. Dave Callahan?
All right. Thank you so much for all the work that went into each one of these handbooks. Two questions. One of them kind of big picture. So attendance policy was one that kept popping up a lot. Is that a significant issue here in Franklin Public Schools? And also, too, two-part about that one, has that been a change since COVID?
I guess I would say from the elementary perspective, one of the things that Josh noted was just around getting back to some previous practices, and I think that we were all a little bit more loose and understanding throughout COVID, and I think as we head into this new school year, we have an opportunity to get back to some of those best practices around tracking attendance, communicating with families, helping to support them. So pre-COVID, yes, it was an issue, and I think we have an opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. And then also, then a specific question with the high school handbook. In terms of the academic honesty policy, there was one of the lines for like the consequences that teachers, must notify the parent or guardian for those involved, but that the teacher may write a referral to the appropriate AP. Is there a reason why it's that kind of like that it's just may, that it's not something that should be happening in every instance?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a spectrum of what may be considered academic dishonesty, right? So like if you plagiarize an entire paper that was 3/4 of the semester and hand that in, I mean, that's obviously a large violation that took a lot of consideration and time by the student to kind of get to that point. Whereas maybe if it's just like a sentence or two, that might not be to the same level. And when things get reported into our Aspen referral system, those notes get shared down with organizations like National Honor Society. So like if a student were to apply to be a member of National Honor Society as a junior and had a small infraction of academic dishonesty as a freshman, that may not allow for them to be welcomed into that club. So the teacher has a little discretion as to like to what extent is this violation fully worthy of a full report that then gets classified, or is it might be something that based on the facts at hand, they might say, you know what, I want to have this conversation, but we're not going to formally charge it. I would equate it to a police officer giving someone a warning versus a full ticket.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Fully explains it. Appreciate it.
Okay. Hal?
Thank you. So I'd like to hear that that you're aligning the search policy with the high school. I think that was a great idea. I think it kind of sets the expectation, the stage. Are there any other policies that are aligned that way, where we're looking to the high school for guidance in the middle school level?
Not that I can think of right now. That was one of the first ones that just jumped to mind. We did spend a little bit of time looking through the high school handbook just to see if there was something we were missing, but I think it's something we could do every summer to check for that. Okay. I'd invite any of the other colleagues on the Zoom to kind of address that question.
There are some district-wide practices, if I could just add. The bullying prevention plan, which outlines policies and how we would interact. I think the civil rights process for investigations is consistent across the district. Any type of infraction of those natures kind of is a district-wide practice that all the admin are consistent with. And even though the consequences may be different by level, I think the types of behavior that are expected are the same. They just they may look different as you get older. And you might find that with maybe some of the inappropriate comments that are made. If a first grader made a comment versus a 12th grader, it might look different, but there's still an expectation that people conduct themselves appropriately. So that's a consistent expectation on how they would interact, just to help fill in.
Okay, great, thank you. And then regarding the distribution of these not yearbooks, the handbooks, what is the process per each level? Can I speak to that a little bit?
Yep, so so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's at that first week of school, the Google form goes out where the handbook is linked, and then the Google form where they have to give consent and permissions to the different, first of all, that they read the handbook and they acknowledge the handbook, but also then it's that video policy, the videotaping, photo policy, as well as the acceptable use policy, all the different policies that they have to give permissions for and consent for. So it goes out in an email with the Google form.
We always say if parents need a hard copy, we will give them a hard copy. We encourage them to use the digital version, but some don't have access, so we do offer that.
And then just in terms of distribution to students, we are required to do a handbook assembly at the beginning of the year, so we'll all do an assembly to make sure students understand what's in the handbook.
Okay, perfect. And then the last one, not a question, just something I noticed as I was looking through it. In the Annie Sullivan handbook. I think it's page 55. Like there's like spacing with the grading and ratings. It was a minor thing, but it was just like it was like looking at it from like a visual perspective. It was like, all right, let you all know. So
Formatting is sometimes challenging.
yeah, exactly.
With this handbook.
Yes, yeah, no, completely
We
understand.
do our best.
Yeah,
They're
no.
76 pages long.
Exactly. It was amazing to see the work that was put in and just the thought and effort. So thank you all for spending the time to do so and creating a great handbook. So thank you. Also.
Please.
Thanks. I sometimes get hung up on little formatting things too, and yeah, I hear you. But really, these are, you know, living documents every year. They're reviewed, and sometimes it can be harder when, you know, you have to like go through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that like you have to really be reading it and really be considering it. Is this still reflecting us, and is this still, you know, what we want to be guiding us? And I think it's so important that it's current. I just want to thank all the principals, assistant principals, central office, and everybody for working on this. And it's so nice to see everybody here tonight and on Zoom. I can see you on Zoom. Just welcome back to everybody. And so much work goes on in the summers in schools. And as Mr. Jagir mentioned in his superintendent report, I think sometimes the community doesn't know because we think school is when kids go into buildings, but there's so much work that you all are doing all summer, and it was a tough year, and hopefully you're able to get your feet under you a little bit and take some time for yourself and you know, think sort of visioning for the future and looking forward to FY23 with everyone here. I have a little nitpicky thing, or just a question that maybe I was confused, a dumb question. So some of them have yellow, so the blue means new. Some of them have yellow highlight, and then there's some green highlight. Do I know what those mean?
It's no difference. It's just the color that the levels chose. That's
okay.
all.
Does that mean parents pay attention, or does that mean this is a working document?
Those were just for you. Once we publish them, the highlights will come out.
No highlights.
There'll be no highlights.
Gotcha.
This was just for your review.
Okay.
So like in mine were yellow, the ones I did, but the elementary ones or the ones that came from someone else, they were a different color.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
There
it was
no
worth
rhyme or
asking the
reason.
question.
It
It
was.
was worth asking the question.
Absolutely,
yes. Okay.
Elise.
Like, am I supposed to know? No.
You didn't get the color code key?
I didn't get the color code key.
If they had meaning, I would have given you
That's
the color code
okay.
key.
Right. Okay, and then, just so with the high school. So it's very exciting about this advisory, and you know, we've been pushing for this for a long time. So excited about this. Are we calling it advisory? I know at a certain point there's maybe gonna have a different name.
It's advisory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Good. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Hooray.
we're excited.
Yes.
I'm very excited about the work that was been done this summer with the middle school admin who have done the work to plan it, and then we'll have a middle school committee of teachers and admin that'll move the work forward, and then Josh also had a team work this summer to really get it up and running, so we are ready to go. We're very
I can't
excited
wait
about
to
it.
hear about. We've had a lot of SWAC discussions and you know, for you know, visioning what it could be if it actually happened, and so now it's happening. So it's really exciting. So congratulations on that front. And that's it.
Okay. All right. So now it's my turn. So I'm sure I'm not the only one here who truly believes that proper planning aids in meeting the academic, social, and emotional needs and success of our students. So I just want to make sure we once again thank you, everyone who's here and online. We see you. We appreciate all of the hard work and hours you've put in over the summer to update and review our student handbooks. I'm very happy to see that the bullying prevention plan and the discipline matrices were incorporated. I've seen the work that's gone in behind the scenes and appreciate our admin team has put this into the handbooks for our families to review and look to when they have questions or concerns. So on top of everything else you guys have already done this summer, you're in here tonight updating us, answering our questions, so thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you guys all here again soon to give us updates on your buildings. Good luck this week. And next, go home, get out of here, go relax, have a great night. Thank you so much.
I have a question. I'm sorry. I know, it's so nice, and can I ask a question about the high school handbook? I was looking through the interscholastic section, and I didn't see anything about sportsmanship and treatment of other teams, and like, especially given, you know, issues from last year. I just wonder if
that could be considered. I mean, obviously, even theater kids should go off and be nice to other groups, but there just wasn't anything about sportsmanship and treatment of other teams and like no toleration of harassment of other teams. So I didn't know if.
So, I mean, the school handbook is really what goes on within the school walls from like 7:35 to 2:10. But I will share that the MIAA has been great in creating courses that all of our athletes need to take regarding their participation on the field. And, most of our fans in off-season are athletes in other seasons or even in that season. So they're all taking bias-based training, this idea of sportsmanship, the need for us all to kind of like check our competitive selves when it comes to how we interact in public places. And so I want to just make sure that there's no misunderstanding. There's a lot being done regarding supporting our students so that they know how to go about interacting both in contests and as spectators. In fact, our new athletic director, Kara Ellis, did a fantastic job last Wednesday running a training for our fall leaders and talked quite a bit about what it means to be a role model and what does that look like, sound like, feel like. And so we're already off to, I think, a pretty good start of, kind of looking at certainly some examples of things that we know we have a lot of room to grow in. And I think we have the team built and the kind of energy to move forward. So thanks for bringing that to our attention.
I'm glad I did because that was really great to hear that they get that training and then also the coaches get that training. Yes. That's great.
Can I follow up on that as well? Josh mentioned something earlier about educating students early and often. And we talked a little bit about the handbook assemblies, but the nature and design of advisory is to hit on these topics throughout. And I think the handbook, if you're a fan or a spectator at an event, that's a school-sponsored event, so the handbook applies. I know that we emphasize that during the meetings, but bias-based comments, things of that nature, to what I think you were talking about, Camille, they apply in the context of a school-sponsored event. But we have to draw the link. I think one area for us to focus on is how do we make sure kids are digesting this and understanding, because there are times you sit at a table and a kid can compartmentalize really well and not understand my interactions and behavior at this particular point in time. I didn't connect to the handbook that you shared, and then I think through advisory, through the work, we're going to send out another fan expectation email like we sent last fall around behavior, a reminder to families with young children to make sure they're supervised by an adult. All the things that we've learned along the way, we plan to do as well. So I just wanted to continue to share that, and I'm excited about the work happening in the athletic department to really build a culture of belongingness and inclusion, and try to continue to help us all grow.
And Josh, I'm sorry, does the MIAA have any kind of like statement or something that they do with the athletes? Like, I wasn't sure if there was like training from them or.
Yeah, so they've provided the training
Okay.
that all of our athletes need to complete before they're eligible to participate in any of the teams. So they've, it's just like the same, it's better, I think, frankly, but it's similar training to what, our faculty will go through before, being able to kind of start the year off and be reminded of important things. Clearly, we've seen evidence across the country in the last few years where young people are really struggling to meet the standards that for a long time had kind of been consistently met. And so I think the MIA has done a really nice job working with the National Federation of High School Sports to come up with some videos and reminders to our young people of like what it means to be truly sportsmanlike. So yeah, they've been a great partner in that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one more.
Yes, Ms. Stokes.
Thank you. That brought up something for me, so thank you. I'm wondering if our new DEI director, Ms. Heidi Harris, is like involved in the conversations around handbooks?
So she's new in onboarding, but certainly participated in our administrative retreat. And I think as she continues to develop and grow within her role, we certainly will continue to see that. I will say some of the work around the interventions, the responses to a violation, there's a section you'll see kind of consequences, but then some of the restorative pieces. We list it as restorative pieces in the handbook. What those actually look like aren't all articulated like in a handbook, because it may be specific. And I know our principals have done this work when a student's had a violation or a bias-based incident. You had to pull and cull and do research and figure out what was the most appropriate educational piece to pair with a consequence. Part of her role is going to be helping us design those learning experiences for kids. So while it's not maybe necessarily quoted in our handbook, the follow-up pieces and all the details that really make the difference are where we expect her to spend some of her time working.
Gotcha, that makes sense, and it makes sense because all behavior is, different and individualized, and so you can't, that's why you list possible responses. This isn't just like your only choices they're listed. It's really depends on the individual and the circumstances, and great, good to know. Correct.
All right. Now quick go before any of
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone online. Thank you, everyone here
You just
tonight.
have to
Yes.
vote to.
Let them go. Don't let them sit there. Yeah, no, they need to go. Log off. Bye, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Josh.
All right, now you can go ahead, Mr.
Okay.
Chakir.
I recommend approval of the school handbooks as detailed.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the school handbooks as discussed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, questions? Already had some. Seeing none, vote will come on the motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Oh, bless you.
Bless you.
Camille?
Yes.
Dave Callahan?
Yes.
Al Charles?
Yes.
Ellie Stokes?
Yes.
Lee Spencer, yes. All right. Motion carries. All right. On to second, number B, policy first readings. Mr. Chakir?
We have 3 policies for your first read. They are updates to existing policies. The first was our non-discrimination policy, in just trying to make sure that we're keeping updated and really moving the work forward around these particular policies. You'll see in the non-discrimination policy, we had our attorneys take a look to see where we could clean up some of the language and make it clearer for families and users, so that we're all kind of looking at the same policy as a guiding document. So I don't know if we do these.
No, we can
Do
do
them
all
all?
of them at
Okay.
once. Yeah.
All right. And
Sorry, go ahead.
do you want me to keep going? or-
Yeah.
Okay. The next was the harassment, including sexual harassment, ACAB. You'll notice the language was tweaked in this one to reflect some of the attorneys adding details like student handbook or applicable laws. You'll see added as a particular area where a consequence could be included. Also, there's a definition of what harassment can be. I think we talk about harassment in the policy, but one of the pieces that the subcommittee discussed was at no point did we kind of talk about it being examples like written, verbal, and making sure that applied to the student to employee harassment, student to student, and employee to student harassment. So basically just trying to add that language and make sure that it applied to all. And then through the due process protections, just some wording changes, nothing substantive. You'll see a number 9 added, appeal rights for both parties. It did exist in number 7. I know that came up as a question, but I wanted to point out that it just was moved at the end so that it flowed more of a sequence. And the last policy is ADC. It's the tobacco products on school premises, which is prohibited. It was formerly called the no smoking policy, and it really was a very basic policy that said that you can't use any type of tobacco product while on school property. The MASC had made updates to their policy. We also recognize that in today's day and age, there are many different ways to ingest used tobacco. So it didn't talk about different things like vaping, electronic cigarettes, and pipes, and all of those types of ways in which that can be used. Those all apply. We've practiced this, but certainly having a policy that's very clear and articulates it makes it a little easy for us to hold folks, accountable and to that expectation. And at the end, you'll notice we did add, if it's a staff member, they violated the policy, they'd be subject to disciplinary action, and students, they'd be subject to the discipline code of conduct, to try to make sure that the policy reflected that. Previously, there had been this, on the 3rd page, you'll see it looked like a matrix, but it was like a chart that was really hard to decipher on what line was what, so this seemed to make the most sense to move forward.
So maybe you do that, and then I do this.
Okay, so I recommend moving forward the following policies for a second reading. AC, non-discrimination, ACAB, harassment including sexual harassment, and ADC, tobacco products on school premises prohibited.
Okay. Is there a motion to move forward the policies to a second reading as discussed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Can I ask a question before?
I need a second before we can have discussion.
But I don't know if I can,
Oh, sorry.
I don't know what second reading involves. I don't understand the motion, because I don't know what second reading involves.
I can share. So,
Thank you.
in order for a policy to become official, what we'll do is we'll do a first read, and then we let the 2 weeks go by before the next meeting. It's open. It's not an official policy until you come back and you have an opportunity 2 times basically to reflect on the policy and share any questions or comments or thoughts you have before we officially vote it in as the updated policy.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you. So I can second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So now we'll have discussion questions. Camille?
I know this is tricky, but I noticed the harassment on school grounds or under the auspices of the school department. What if it's cyberbullying that happens like in the evenings? I know I'm not suggesting that the school be responsible for that. I can't imagine what that is like, but how much, like, where is that gray area? Where does it become clear?
great question. We're actually working on creating and cleaning up some protocols that have, similar to the bullying plan, a civil rights protocol and a Title IX sexual harassment protocol that would use these policies as the guiding document, similarly to match what we did with bullying. The nexus or the connection is when the environment, the learning environment for a student becomes impacted and they're unable to learn, they're unable to attend school, depending on the severity, that's really where we start to look at behavior from outside that's made its way in, and if an investigation takes place and it's able to be determined that actions took place that are having a direct impact on a student's ability to learn in the building, that's typically the approach we take. We don't stay up at night and try to search people's internet feeds and try to find things to get kids in trouble, but if their actions have an impact on another individual and they can't access their education as they're afforded, that's when we have those conversations. So that's a very good question, and I think a policy is good for guiding, but I do think having a procedure like the bullying plan helps answer those kind of, the FAQs, like how does this really play out? So you bring up a good question.
I think it was a great answer too. It made it clear if it's the purview of the school when it affects the child's ability to access education. Okay. As far as the tobacco one, I come from the South. I had to look up snuff. I was like, what is snuff? Because we called it dip. So, but apparently snuff is, a dip is a smaller bit of snuff. So you have a can of snuff and you take a dip out of the snuff. So in case you didn't know.
Thank you for that education.
That's
I learned a new word tonight.
So that way we fully encapsulate it.
Okay.
Doesn't matter the quantity. It's
Okay.
not.
All right.
Let's do that.
So there's a motion and a second?
Dave Callahan,
No.
do you have anything? No? Al?
Yeah. So reading this in a silo, there's no reference to like the Title IX coordinator and their role. Does this make sense to add something, some language around the Title IX coordinator, what they do, or at least a reference to the document where this could be found? Because that was one of the things that was like, okay, yep, I understand it, but I think if you're just looking at it, you're not familiar. There may be some gaps, and folks, I think that would help kind of put this all together in terms of who's involved in the process.
Right. I think that's good feedback. We can take that back and put that through. I will say so yes, the answer is yes, we can do that for clarity. I will say the idea of having a guiding document, there was a secondary document that we're looking to update that has a lot more information, but this is like kind of where does the district stand? It's your policy. What's your expectation on how we're upholding these particular rules, laws, regulations, to make that happen. What I will say is we can do that. We are updating our website. As all of this gets approved, we're going to have a non-discrimination harassment site, part of our website on the Franklin PS website, that will really hit on not only these policies, but these manuals, and it's going to list the people who you can be in contact with as well. So maybe having it in multiple places will be a good thing too.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And then I know for our DI director, she wasn't in place at the time. Will she be involved in the second reading of this with the policy committee, subcommittee, just to get her perspective and purview?
Yes, especially when it comes to the protocols and how we operationalize this procedure. A lot of what we took, the attorneys actually did a lot of the work to get this up to date as far as the legal document, but certainly the work that we do with our civil rights grievance procedure and also our Title IX grievance procedure. Yes,
Okay,
for
great.
those, which are coming to you hopefully within a meeting or two.
Great, thank you. All set.
Okay. Elise?
No questions.
I just have one question, and I feel terrible because I should have brought this up at a policy meeting. In ADC, at the very end, it talks about signs being posted in all school buildings. Do we have them also on, like, the athletic fields outside? So for, like, the high school, like, the athletic fields, or, like, Remington Jefferson, I know that they have, like, the soccer field and the baseball field. Could we
They're on the
possibly have?
buildings. I don't know about the fields. I know at I believe at the stadium, the football field, I do think there's no smoking signs out there. What we can do is I can follow up on that.
Okay.
Yeah. They're on the physical buildings. I think that's like the legal requirement, but you're pointing around. And maybe we add snuff to the sign too.
I just imagine there's a bunch of kids doing
Yeah.
snuff
Yeah,
at
sure.
the baseball field. Doing snuff, is that what they say?
I don't.
You Googled it, I don't know.
Dipping stuff?
All right, so we have a second. Discussion questions.
Do we have a
All right.
second?
We did, yeah, Camille
Yes.
seconded, yeah.
Second?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, so vote will come on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying, oh, yep, roll call vote, sorry, I'm so used to it. Camille?
Yes.
But do you have a second?
I just have a question, because if Al had asked for some revisions, is that, are we not voting for a second read for that one? We're just voting for the second read for the first two?
You could vote for a second reading. I could come back
And you can make
and do the
revisions in
update,
the
and then you
interim.
can
Okay.
vote for it to be final.
Okay, gotcha. So we don't have to do another first read if they're small?
You don't have to if you feel comfortable that I'll incorporate that into the.
Yep.
Gotcha,
Okay.
okay. Thanks.
All right, Camille?
Yes.
Dave Callahan?
Yes.
Al Charles?
Yes.
Elise Stokes?
Yes.
Denise Spencer, yes. All right, motion carries. Discussion only items, Mr. Jagir, new hire updates.
Okay, I'm going to invite our Human Resources Director, Lisa Trainer, to come to the front. And she's prepared some information for all of you just with regard to hiring. I've done the plugs, but I've also provided some staffing updates along the way on kind of where we're at with hiring. And I think that while we still have some positions to fill, a tremendous amount of work has gone into hiring the folks that we have in our district. And, we basically have about 800 permanent employees, meaning anyone who works like over 20 hours, who is benefit eligible. And so if you think about that with 800 employees, over the summer, we're looking at approximately 117 positions that we were able to fill at this point. So I think Lisa's going to hit on some of the details of that, and a lot of work went in, and you see some admin here today. A lot of the summer has been spent, particularly this summer, for districts across the state, across the country. But I just want to give credit to HR and our admin team and our screening people and folks that came in over the summer to help participate in these interviews, and my colleagues that were sitting up here in the meeting, just the work that went in.
Yeah, I will say it's been a very busy summer. Most people think, oh, summer schools are quiet and calm and we're getting other work done, but I will say this has been a challenging recruitment summer. Since, probably June, as Mr. Jagir said, we've hired so far about 117 individuals, and if you think about the process that we put in place to hire individuals, it's not just, one step and you're done. There's many steps to that, and it's a very cumbersome process, and we try to do it with fidelity. So it's been extremely busy. I'd like to say we've been hiring right up until the hour before orientation, which started today. And, managing to get people where they need to be. Unfortunately, we are not done, with school opening upon us. Right around the corner, we do still have some openings remaining. It has been a struggle. As you probably heard, we're not alone in that struggle as a school district. It's been very difficult finding folks, qualified folks that want to work. Many of the reasons for our openings are varied. Excuse me, we've been filling leaves of absences. We've been filling retirements. Certainly we have resignations for various reasons for folks, relocating, leaving for other jobs, maybe for more money. Some folks decided they wanted to work from home and do some other things. So it's various reasons. I wouldn't identify any one particular reason why folks are leaving Franklin Public Schools. It's not an area that's a grave concern to me as far as one particular area that we might not be doing well in. It's just the magnitude this year was a little greater than most. So I think we've done really well up to this point, but we do still have some work to do. Currently we have about, and just to give you some idea, if I could back up, we've hired about 117 new folks. Out of those 117, about 69 were educators and administrators. If you remember, we did have quite a few administrative positions to fill this year and many processes that we had to start probably, maybe mid-June. And about 48 of that 117, were support personnel. And I do like to just remind folks the types of positions that we hire here that it takes to run a school. So we often think of educators, excuse me, we think of aides in the classroom, but we have a lot of support staff, from interventionists to academic coaches, personal care attendants, secretaries, cafeteria workers, activity monitors. We have our lifelong learning program, our adult ed program, administrative liaisons, van drivers. There's a lot of support behind, what we do every day to keep kids safe and to keep our, our engine running. So, it's difficult to find all positions at this point in time, where it used to be easier to find certain positions. So about 48 of those hires out of the 117 were those types of positions. And we're not even talking about our auxiliary staff, because Mr. Jaguar talked about our 800 permanent, but we have a lot more staff working here, whether it's substitutes, whether it's coaches, so there's a lot of auxiliary staff that we also, throughout the year, need to hire and maintain. So I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I think we've done well considering the openings that we've had, and people have been working really hard in the few months that we've had for the summer. We do have about 25 remaining vacancies. I am glad to say that most of the educator positions have been filled. We're probably about 5 educator positions to still fill. Some are possibly pending, and we're still looking and interviewing to fill those positions. Most of the remaining vacancies are in the instructional support area, so ESPs, interventionists, ABA tutors, and the like. So, we'd like to get those classroom positions filled, and then at the same time, focus on those as well. I guess if you're going to prioritize, you do have to look at what's in front of you and bring them in anyway. So it's in no particular order, really. But those are some areas that we're struggling with. We have had a lot of internal transfers this year. So we had a lot of movement. We've had a lot of promotions, which is great. It's always great to see that upward mobility and people wanting to take some leadership roles. We've had some folks just transfer, between buildings, and we've had some aides become teachers. We've had some aides become interventionists. So we've just had a lot of sliding parts, if you will. But there's always that backfilling for the majority of those positions. And I would say about 20% of those open positions were filled with internal transfers. I will say that one thing that's new to us That began last year. I think last year was the beginning of the recruitment crunch, where it became just more increasingly difficult to fill positions. And we were at a point where we did end up utilizing some placement agencies, some staffing agencies, which is never your go-to originally. It's just a last resort. And we did utilize some agencies last year. We had some success with some of the support positions that we were struggling with. Unfortunately, this year we did have to increase our reach with those agencies to look for some educator positions. So you will see this year that there are some educator positions that have been filled by agency personnel. And I think, Paul, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at least 4, 3 or 4. And it is a last resort. It's not something that we like to do, but we just felt that with school opening around the corner, we needed to extend our reach, and we also needed to extend that reach because other districts are doing that. And, if we're all going to the same agency, we want to get in there and we want to get our positions known. We do interview those folks from the agency, just so that they don't just send anyone. We've asked that, no, we do want to interview them and at least do some screening for those folks as well as the agency doing some screening. So we do that, just so that you know. Hopefully that's a short stopgap measure this year, and it's not something I would ever recommend having to continue. Our recruitment efforts, as again, that was the last resort. Our recruitment efforts are similar to what other districts are doing. So, we have our main school spring is where we post the majority of educator jobs. That's what most folks use around the state now. It's very well known, but we also put our positions out there on many college venues. You might not be familiar, but there's something called Handshake, which most colleges are participating in now, where you can post your positions and pick whatever college you want it to go to. And, throughout New England, they're all on there, so we post them there. There's virtual job fairs that we've gone to for some of those that they host on that site. We've done some, we went back to print advertising is still alive, apparently, mostly for the support positions. Some folks, van drivers, clerical, cafeteria, they're not going on school spring. It's a process that you're filling out. So we still do use some print advertising. So this past week, we've printed in the Sun Chronicle, the Woonsocket Call, Milford Daily News. It doesn't hurt to get out there. We've done some social media. Lily, who's wonderful, our media specialist, will do something on Facebook or Instagram and anywhere that we can. We've had a lot of employee referrals, which has been great. I think Mr. Giguère's mother's out there really trying to bring some folks in, providing some names to me.
We did get one.
That's adorable.
Finder's fee. No.
I've been doing it at some restaurants I was at. Retired teachers are now asking to sub, but so we're at the point where anything is helpful. And if anyone else has any wonderful ideas, we are all ears. I've spoken with colleagues. We've tried not to pilfer from one another, but I will say it's been a little bit of dog eat dog out there. But you certainly don't try to go in and steal from other districts. But everyone's in a similar situation, so we all are vying for the same candidates.
Can I make a comment, just Lisa, to follow up on that? One thing I've noticed when we did our exit interviews with folks, and when people talk about reasons for leaving, sometimes it's, I really would like a shorter commute. I experienced the pandemic, I lived a certain way, I came back, and I'm looking to be back in a closer community. If you ask people who we've hired, what are some of the reasons that you like Franklin? When they do their homework, they'll talk about the programs, the education we provide, wanting to be a part of this, but some of them say also, this is a shorter commute for me, and I've been traveling out of this region to go work in other areas. So we're seeing people who've, there's been a bit of a reckoning since the pandemic around, what do I value, and do I want to be in a car for 2 hours to drive, in a 4-hour commute? So that, that might seem anecdotal, but there was a common theme, and when I've compared notes, people have said that. We've also had people relocate far away, more than I've seen in my time. And just to point out a couple of notes here, we have people who've relocated to Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, Cape Cod. Even though it's close for vacationing, it's not great for a daily commute. South Carolina, Western Mass. So there's people who are kind of shuffling and deciding, where do I want to live? How do I want to spend my time? So I think at the same regard where we're not trying to, pull from one another, I think we're seeing a massive shuffling at the same time where there are less candidates out there applying for positions across the state. So I just would point that out. And I know, Lisa, you mentioned being doom and gloom. We certainly have a reality where we're trying to fill schools and start, but we've put a tremendous amount of time in vetting some really, really strong candidates that have come up and been interviewed. And I'm excited about the people who were at the new teacher orientation today.
That's great.
And the skills that they're going to bring to those positions. So while we still have work to do, everyone's working really hard to open up school and have the best experience for kids. And we're going to continue to work at it. It's been hard to fill every position.
And I will add to that, Mr. Jaguar, because when you're talking about relocation, you forget that oftentimes people that work here have another half, significant other or partner, and they may be able to work remotely based upon what's happened over the last 2 years, and they want to relocate, so they're going, their other half is going with them, and they might be the one that's teaching here. So, I think a lot of that has happened as well. So what else? I don't know if you have any questions in particular, although I will mention, we have also had some returning folks, which has been great this year. We've had some returning educators as well as administrators. So, it was good to know that, they wanted to come back to Franklin. They enjoyed their experience here. They left for whatever reason, but they left with a good memory and a good history of Franklin, and were eager to come back. And we were excited to have them back as well. So.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. All right, we'll go down the line. Camille?
I have a couple questions. I know that I'm simplifying the 117 because I know some of them are brand new positions, some of them were filled with internal candidates, but then those positions became open. But out of, I can't remember the exact number you said, Lucas, but 800 something? Mm-hmm. How many?
Well, there's approximately 800 what we call permanent employees, because a lot of our staff is transient or substitute, or, they work, a coach, for instance, works piece of the year. Adult ed might come and go. So when you're talking about what is our real permanent staff, I generally round to about 800. I haven't counted yet. I will after this new year.
Oh no, I just used an estimate.
I did say 800.
Yeah, so I just used an estimate, and again, my math here is just a broad picture, but that's like 14.5% turnover or new, or that's, and I know you said that it's an unusual year, and I know that other districts are in this situation, but it does concern me that it's, 14.5% turnover. And what is a typical turnover for Franklin? I heard you mention exit interviews, and I wondered if those are standard or that the data could be collected in a way that's standard, because that is good feedback. And certainly when people leave, they may express themselves more freely or less freely, depending. But I wonder if there could be work to create some sort of standardized, where it's not, if you want to, but that it becomes standard practice, especially if this 12 to 14% is a typical thing, because it's, it's extraordinary use of resources to recruit and hire and train all of those people. So we would want to know if there is some trend that we could do something about. And then my other question was, so the agency personnel, would they not be under the union?
No.
So they'd be working outside the union?
Correct.
Okay.
They're not actually our employees, so we don't pay them. We pay the agency, and then they pay them.
Yeah.
So whatever benefits or money they're getting is all negotiated through their agency. We don't have anything to do with that.
Okay.
And if I can add, just to your point, that 14, they don't let me do math here.
I try to stay away from it.
But that does, it is a little high, and if we actually backed out some transfers and the roughly 25 new positions, it wouldn't be that high.
Sure.
And it is not, but to your point, it's not typically that high.
Okay. Last question. I know you said you had to, I know we're in extraordinary circumstances. For anyone thinking about going into teaching, I would still say do it.
Yes, I would agree.
I would still say it's the best job ever. However, I would hate to see us move farther and farther to a situation where we are operating with more and more agency personnel who are not working in a union. So that would, I recognize in extraordinary circumstances you have to do it. I just want to say on the 23rd of August in 2022, I don't want us moving towards that sort of model.
Yeah, that would never be.
We do not want to do that.
That's not our.
Coming from this group, I'm sure. And,
Okay.
It is a last resort.
Okay.
Trust me.
Okay.
It is. And in
Thanks.
fact, it's funny, the agency employees oftentimes do want to jump ship and work for us because they enjoy their experience and you know, we're beholden to the contract for X amount of time. But for instance, last year, we did have we met our contractual obligation with the agency and we did hire them on our payroll this year. So
Oh, do we have any control? Now I'm getting into stuff I don't know anything about, but do we have any control of like a period of probation and then we go, then you come as a full teacher?
So contracts are written a little differently, but
Okay.
there are opportunities based upon how long they've worked for us, what we may have to convert in so far as a fee to get them on board on our payroll, or they phase out over a long period of time. There's also some where you can actually pay a very large amount of money and just take the employee from
Sure.
that agency. I'm not sure we're at the point.
No.
where we wanna
I
look
would
at
not
doing
want to be
that, but-
fiscally irresponsible, but teachers who are committed to the community and not, warm bodies from an agency, not to say nothing against the people who are hired through that. I'm sure they're wonderful candidates, but, that we want a community where people are
Oh, sure.
committed here. Thank you. No more questions.
Dave Callahan?
Thank you very much. So for individuals at home that might want to, be interested in, coming to work for Franklin, I think we might be able to toss the website link up on the TV.
So you can go directly to, excuse me, you can go directly to our webpage. There's an HR site on our website, and it'll take you to our openings. Also, if you want to do it really quickly, recruit@franklinps.net, and that'll come right to us. So just a quick note, if you don't have a resume put together yet, we'll talk.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you. We kind of have that link right on the website, right on TV right now. So again, for those at home, franklinps.net. It's very quick to kind of follow human resources and then employment opportunities.
Give us a call. We're open 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, second floor, town hall.
And I truly appreciate just trying to pitch it and to get the word out there, right now, and virtually, and like you said, in print as well. Really making sure that no stone is left unturned, which is great. And also, too, I think this might have come up at our last meeting, and I know we kind of touched on it a couple of times today, but just in the global, kind of scope. This isn't, like the high turnover, the difficulty hiring, that's not unique to Franklin, correct?
It is
And so
not.
for those that might, be kind of listening in right now,
Right.
this is something that many districts across, even outside of New England, are experiencing. Is that correct?
That is correct. Absolutely.
It's the same reason why you might go to a restaurant and have to wait longer. Even other establishments and other businesses are struggling to find just employees, and I'm not sure exactly why, but it's not unlike that as well.
I mean, it's good, as it's not a good problem to have, but at least to know that it's not isolated in, uniquely to Franklin is at least somewhat of a relief. So thank you very much for all the work that we're doing. And again, for those at home, please reach out, go online, take a look at the Sun Chronicle for any of those job opportunities.
You're so sneaky. I love it.
Al Charles.
Yeah, thank you. So just to jump off of where Dave was going, I know this is not unique to Franklin. How do we compare to other towns, or like in terms of severity? Is it worse, better? Like where are we in the kind of pecking order?
You know, I think personally, I'm not happy with just 5 educator openings right now, but I will say, I considering where we were 2 weeks ago or even 3 weeks ago, I feel better about it, and we're still pursuing. I know I'm on a listserv with other districts and other members of the HR community, and I know that we're not alone. I can't tell you how many openings they all have, but if you just go, for instance, on SchoolSpring or Indeed.com, because they all trickle down to those other sites, Indeed, Monster, etc., and query special education teacher, you'll see what comes up.
Okay.
And it's quite extensive. So I don't, special ed is an area, I mentioned that because that is an area that's even harder than most. You can find elementary teachers today, you can still find good elementary teachers, but, sped teachers are harder to find, and we're all struggling in that particular area. And maybe some other areas, whether it be, some particular science areas, et cetera, ELD teachers and the such.
In my new superintendent induction program, it's about 22 new superintendents, and one of the topics of discussion was just around filling vacancies. Most of the folks that are in there are either appointed from within, like I was, or they're entering a district, and from what's been shared and the needs, I think, we certainly are going to continue to commit to filling our positions, but there are definitely, it's shared across the state and the folks that I talk to, and the listservs that I'm on, the text threads that I'm on, people reaching out, asking about positions, and I think we're all in the same boat. So.
Same with the special ed directors. Most of us are searching for similar positions to fill. So.
Okay, great, thank you. And then, so we have 117 new hires, so that's an impressive number. Do you know how many applicants we've had total to get to the 117? Like,
I haven't had time to count, honestly.
She can't do math, she said.
What was that?
I said she can't do math, she said.
Can't do math, yeah.
I mean, I will tell you that it's, where we used to see if you put a job posting up, let's say for a special educator, you didn't always get 1,000 applicants, but you at least got 25 to 30, I would say, and what we're seeing now is, we're, lucky if we see 10 for some postings, and, still have qualifiers in there, and the people we've hired are great so far, and we're very excited to have them on board, but, you're not getting a lot of applicants to choose from.
Gotcha, okay. I think my last question, it just flipped out of my head. Bear with me 1 second. So school starting next Tuesday. What's our plan if we don't get the 5 educator? What's our backup? What's our line in the sand, or we have to do something, or what? Yeah, exactly.
Well, I know they won't be putting me in front of the children, but I know that Paula.
Yeah, we'll be looking at caseloads. We'll look at how to redistribute caseloads. We'll look, last resort would maybe transferring staff if we have to from different buildings that are in better shape. We have to, obviously that's with discussion with the union. But yeah, those are our plans. Really redistributing caseloads among the staff that we have, and then if we have to, transfer staff to try to equal things out a bit.
You do need to look at where those openings are and where the priorities are, and make some difficult decisions, even if it's temporary and it's a stopgap measure, until such
While
time as you
continuing
have
to
that
hire.
permanent
We will continue to hire through it, for sure. We still have it out to agencies again, again, that's our last resort, one of our last resorts, but we're doing everything we can.
All right, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have a couple follow-up questions about the educators filled by the agency personnel. So is that you sign a 1-year contract, or is that we'll sign with you in week by week basis, and hopefully we hire somebody great? Because I know the price tag on that is much higher than what we pay.
It is, and that's the challenge. Obviously I try to make it for a short-term basis and say we'll reevaluate after 2 months, 3 months, but it's harder to secure candidates that way. So I cut them, and for the same reason, because they tell me, other district, these are high commodity candidates, so they want a one-year contract, so I try to do as much negotiation as possible, but sometimes I just have to say, yes, we'll commit to the year, and, and then we'll figure things out as we continue to hire and search, so.
No, that doesn't mean, even though they're from an agency, that doesn't mean if certain things aren't working out.
Right.
For very legitimate reasons, that we don't have
We do have a
recourse.
termination
We do
clause.
have recourse for that.
Yes, we do have recourse if there's a performance issue or anything negligible that we want to terminate.
Would Franklin Public School administrators evaluate an agency person, or does that go through an agency supervisor?
Yeah, evaluate to the point where, they'll observing, they'll give feedback, they'll come back to me, come to Andrew and to Jen, if they're special educators, and talk about their performance, and then I reach out to the recruiters. So there is a process, similar, but it's not a formal evaluation per se.
Right, okay.
But there's definitely a check and balance process that we have active conversations throughout.
Right. And so where would that be in our budget on the line item? So it's not under salaries, I'm guessing? It's in the secret place?
It's going to be. No secrets.
There is no secrets.
No secrets in the
No, I meant a different place.
It would be in the special services, contracted services line,
Okay.
under the student services budget.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say that this particular item would be budgeted for, but it would be accounted for, because at this point, we're not paying a salary of a staff member that was budgeted for.
Right, so things could be transferred if they had to.
Exactly, and then, we could also, apply it to the grant if we had to, and whatnot too, so, because it would be giving a service.
Gotcha. So are most of those the agency educators in special ed positions?
Correct.
Okay, right, because they're more specialized.
Correct.
Okay. And then a question that I had asked another time, but I think it's worth asking publicly, is that, I know a lot of the time when people get jobs in schools, if they have, 10 years under the belt, they're like, nobody's going to hire me, I'm too expensive. There's that sort of rumor happening. And so it's just are we turning people away because they're too expensive?
No,
but it's
not if
really
they-
great.
In fact.
We are not.
Okay.
Block Miriam's ears, but
We
no,
are
we're not.
not turning people away.
We need good people.
We are
teaching
not.
kids.
If they are
Yeah.
good and they have experience
Yeah.
and the skills that we're looking for, we are hiring them,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
In fact, I will say, to your point, that has been sometimes a practical way
Yeah.
to approach hiring. However, with the lack of qualified candidates out there, some people who may not have moved because they were at, let's say, step 13,
Right.
are moving now
Yeah.
because it provides them the opportunity to be closer to home or in a district they really want to be in. So, I guess there's a plus to that at times, and I think we've seen a little bit of that going on where they're now coming here because we're paying that step 14 for those roles.
Right, and you get what you pay for. And if
Exactly.
we want experienced
Absolutely.
educators who don't have a steep a learning curve and are ready to hit the ground running, and that's all worth it.
Absolutely.
And if I can add, just to make people a little bit more comfortable, I know we're talking agency, and I know it's foreign to many people and anyone that might be listening, but, again, they are vetted, and they do go through the same trainings that our other educators go through, whether it be the mandated training, the mandated reporting, the COREs, the fingerprints. So I just know that even though they're through the agency, they're going through those same trainings that we're offering our own folks as well.
Right. Are they with us on PD days?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so then for some, I also just want to echo that this is a crisis across districts in the state, other districts that I know and work with. So I guess as the applicant pool is slimmer, and we're hiring, and some may not be as robust as we'd prefer maybe a couple of years ago. Is there as far as the mentoring process, is there some room there to sort of pad that a little bit for certain people that might need extra support in the role that they're hired to do?
Yes, so all of our new hires are assigned mentors that are within our district and paired with their district. The other piece we didn't talk about, but an area that we're also looking to do is continue to think about how do we build up and contribute and support a system that grows educators and has educators. So we've done a great job, and our principals have done a great job of taking on student teachers and trying to look at other ways, just like the systemic issue and how can we help. and there are people that they take, and our veteran staff will bring on new teachers. So we continue to try to work those angles. So we're talking about the immediate and the need to do things in this moment at this point in time, but we're also committed to kind of the bigger idea of how we can continue to try to get qualified people. And if they student teach and get licensed, and they did it in Franklin, our hope is that maybe they stay within that in that system, and we can hire them on as well. So.
Absolutely, yeah, and nothing against, green staff, they're if they have a growth mindset and enthusiasm and like working with kids, then that's a lot. That's a lot.
Self-reflection is also helpful.
Self-reflection, yes,
Yes.
that's true. Right, absolutely. Okay, that's it. Thanks. Is that funny? Yeah.
You just got so excited. All right, so we talked about the 5 educator positions. So for the ESPs, interventionists, et cetera, not filling those positions, how could that affect students potentially? If
Potentially, services could be missed. Our students might not have the supports they need in the gen ed classrooms. There might be issues with coverage for people's lunches and whatnot. It might make our administrator's job even more difficult during the day to cover those union contractual obligations. So yeah, there's concerns.
Real concerns.
Real
Yeah.
concerns. We're not sleeping well.
Yeah, I just wanted to really drive home that.
Yep,
I mean,
obviously, we're going to do everything we can to make sure all of our legal minutes and the supports and services students need are met. We're just going to have to get really, really creative.
And we do have a hierarchy for hiring those instructional support positions. So, you start here with what you're looking for in a candidate, and it's, college education, maybe a 4-year degree, work with children, then maybe a 2-year degree, familiar with children, and you kind of work your way down to what the pool looks like. Certainly there's a bar, and you're only going to go so far, but, if you are someone out there and you are familiar with working with children and you like working with children and you're very trainable and moldable, we're very good at helping folks along if that's where we need to be, to get some folks in that are kind-hearted, that learn quickly, that are, caring, and, have a little bit of experience. So we will consider those folks at this point.
all right. And I know that it's everywhere, it's across, it's everywhere, but I just think that people need to realize that it is a real issue, and, patience, some kindness goes a long way.
Yes.
So, I wasn't sure where to ask this, so I'm going to stick it in the new hire update, new hire questions. So I remember last year at Keller, our numbers were very high, and we had to bring in some extra staff. Are the numbers high now this year because the grades moved up? Have we looked at our numbers? Is there a way to get updated numbers so we can see if an additional educator is required?
So we continue to monitor enrollment. Enrollment's occurring every day. We get new people in, and continue to look at those numbers. And I think one message I would say to the community is, we're trying to be as fiscally responsible, yet make sure that we're providing a safe learning environment for all kids. And we need to look at what's within the guidelines of the school committee. So when we may have, enjoyed a small class size at a smaller number, but it's up to 22 or 23 or something to that effect, that's going to be a reality that we have to face as a community and kind of look at and accept and kind of work forward to meet. I will say, as we continue to work through space needs and look at efficiencies and try to study, I think this is part of a larger discussion that I'm not prepared to have at this moment in time, but certainly we are paying attention, and we're trying to create learning environments and spaces for kids that have the appropriate number of students in the classes and a teacher who's highly qualified and trained to teach them. So that's kind of where we're at with that, but certainly we continue to monitor those numbers and make adjustments as needed.
Yeah, I imagine that there'll be additions up until after even the first day.
This is the big push window
yeah.
right now, but yeah, typically, up till the first day, people realize when the first day of school is, and they try to get that,
Panic.
get the lease done or get a home, sold or something to that effect.
Okay. So, and I know that we received numbers time doesn't make sense anymore. We just recently received numbers for classroom sizes. Maybe after the first, September 1st, we can get
Yes,
updated.
September
Yeah,
1st
I
is the
think
next
so.
time, actually.
Okay. All right, perfect. All right, thank you. All right, I think that's it for me.
Do you have something else that popped up? Sorry, question.
Sure.
Okay. So Ms. Morano had mentioned around the coverage for lunches and things that we may have to deal with. Have we thought about reaching out to the community to see, or can we reach out to the community to see if they can volunteer to help cover some of the things that may not necessarily need that level of expertise, so that we do give back to the teachers, because I know they have a lot on their plate to begin with.
That's definitely an option, absolutely. Obviously, we'd still need a staff member, to be at that lunch, just because they know the students, they know, rules and regulations and expected behaviors and how to, intercede when unexpected behaviors are happening, but that is absolutely an option of bringing volunteers back in to help us out.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you. Lisa, thank you so much, and to everybody else for all of your hard work. Thank you. And again, I just want to commend our principals and assistant principals. There's a lot of lost sleep going on right now amongst all of us, and they're really working hard, trying to open school, but also trying to hire and having those worries too of who's going to be in front of kids. So I do want to commend them and thank them for all of their hard work. Yes, so thank you very much. Thank you. All right, I think that's it. You guys go. Get out. All right, next, information matters. Superintendent evaluation, Elise?
So no new updates, but we're looking for the new superintendent's goals probably in October. Now we'll start our process again.
Okay, all right, budget, Dave is not with us. Policy, Dave Callahan?
All right, so we got our next appointment, September 7th. As you saw, we already had a lot of pieces coming up for first read tonight. There's a few more that will kind of be making their way up, in front of us as well. But yeah, we're kind of really, like I said, back on firing on all cylinders. And there's a number of policies that'll be coming up for first and second reads. Can't talk and sit still at the same time. It's impossible. Just finished the coffee, so I'm really going.
He's very
But
excited.
we're doing well. So yeah, September 7th, but then we also have September 28th. We'll have 2 meetings in that month.
Write those down so I don't forget. Okay. Community relations. So I've reserved our booth for the Harvest Festival in October. We're going to meet so that we can go over all of our plans and what we're going to do. So I just got the email to make sure we reserved it, so I did that. And also in public advocacy, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents is hosting a joint conference November 2nd through November 5th. I know Mr. Jagir and I will be there. I think are you coming as well?
I don't know.
You don't know,
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I will be there.
Okay.
Sorry.
You signed up.
I'm just
like-
blanking out on the
Okay, I thought you were
event.
going.
Yes, I will be there. Yes, sorry.
So we'll give you an update afterwards. The 2022 MASC Delegate Assembly will be held on November 2nd, and pending approval by the full committee, which we usually do in the fall. I'll once again be representing Franklin, and I'll bring to your attention the resolutions that we'll be voting on in that meeting, just like we do every fall. And that's it. So, space needs and facilities.
Yep, space needs and facilities. We are meeting this coming Thursday at 2, not 1.
Thursday at 2.
Thursday at 2, yep. We will be just doing a recap of what's been done and completed to date, so that just to level set. And then we started the RFP process, so we'll talk through the next steps around that and expectations and timing. And then we will discuss the plans for the redistricting advisory committee and what that looks like and what expectations would be. So, yeah, so Thursday at 2.
Thursday at 2. Perfect. Joint PCCs.
JPCC, no meeting date as of yet. We're looking to find out what would be our standing time frame going forward. I believe we will be getting a schedule out to the PCCs to get their perspective on what time would work best, and then we'll get that on the books.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I didn't want to assume. I know SWAC hasn't met. I spoke with Mr. Jagir.
So the School Wellness Advisory Council and the Substance Abuse Task Force, those will be going out. Tina's going to be heading up SWAC, and Paula will continue to run the Substance Abuse Task Force. So those we'll put out some information. Next meeting, we should have more of an update. but we're in the planning phases right now and the transition, so.
Okay.
Oh, Miriam and Tina will be co-facilitating. I'm sorry, Miriam?
It's all right.
Yes. Co-leading, and Paula will take the lead, and I hope to join you still. I really enjoy those committees, if you'll have me.
Of course we will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. CPAC, Elise?
No new updates.
Okay. And DEI committee as well, I'm sure they'll be going out. Perfect. Okay. Moving along to consent agenda. Mr. Chigir?
I recommend approval of the minutes from the August 9th, 2022 school committee meeting as detailed.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as detailed?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right. Discussion, questions? All right. So seeing none, vote will come on the motion. Roll call vote. Camille?
Yes.
Dave Callahan?
Yes.
Al Charles?
Yes.
Elise Stokes?
Yes.
Denise Spencer, yes. All right, motion carries. All right, citizens' comments. Are there any citizens in the audience, in person or online, who would like to make a comment on an item not on tonight's agenda and falls within the committee's purview? I'll give Zoom land a second. I know sometimes it's hard to find the button. All right. All right, moving right along, new business, Mr. Jagir.
Okay. Next meeting, you can expect an update on our school opening.
Mm-hmm.
We'll also do a new administrator introduction, so I'll have them come and you can meet and do some intros that way. Tentatively scheduled, we have our digital learning integrationist and the digital learning plan that was put together in the spring. With all of the meetings and transitions, it felt better to push that to the fall to kick off the year as one of the first plans that you'll hear about in the succession of other ones like the district improvement and school improvement plans. My new superintendent induction program coach is a retired superintendent, and he is hoping to come to a meeting to just introduce himself and what the work he's going to be doing with me. We're looking at next meeting, but I am waiting to hear for confirmation. So I think September definitely. And with that, I've also been working on a transition plan that I'd like to share, and I think it will lead into the goals, and setting some goals. So I think it could be a starting document to kind of lead into some of that work, and it'll tie in with our district improvement, school improvement goals too. And there's a board appointment for Franklin TV that needs to happen. So those are some of the things you can expect next meeting.
Okay, perfect. All right, so finally, is there a motion to adjourn the August 23rd Franklin School Committee?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Camille?
Yes.
Dave Callahan?
Yes.
Al Charles?
Yes.
Elise Stokes?
Yes.
Denise Spencer, yes. All right, thank you, everyone. Good luck to everybody next week, starting school.